Jazz is more than just a musical genre. It's an art form, a cultural movement, and a reflection of the human experience. Born out of the African American communities of New Orleans in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, jazz has since evolved into one of the most influential and diverse musical styles in the world. Known for its improvisational nature, complex harmonies, and rhythmic innovation, jazz has shaped countless other genres and remains a profound influence on global music today. Jazz emerged as a blend of African American musical traditions, including blues, ragtime, and spirituals, fused with European musical influences. New Orleans, with its melting pot of cultures, was the perfect environment for jazz to take root. Early jazz musicians like Buddy Bolden, Roll Morton, and Louis Armstrong helped define the sound of early jazz, with its syncopated rhythms and lively brass instrumentation. Louis Armstrong, in particular, revolutionized jazz by popularizing solo improvisation, which would become one of the defining characteristics of the genre. In the 1920s, often referred to as the Jazz Age, the genre began to spread across the United States, largely due to the Great Migration, where African Americans moved from the southern states to northern cities in search of better opportunities. Cities like Chicago and New York became new epicenters of jazz innovation. The music became synonymous with the vibrant nightlife of the era, particularly in Harlem, where clubs like the Cotton Club hosted performances by some of the most significant figures in jazz history, including Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway. Duke Ellington, one of jazz's most prolific composers and bandleaders, transformed the big band sound during the swing era. His compositions combined complex orchestrations with jazz's improvisational elements, producing iconic pieces like Take the A-Train and It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing. The swing era, which dominated the 1930s and early 1940s, introduced jazz to mainstream America, with big bands led by Ellington, Benny Goodman, and Count Basie filling dance halls across the country. As jazz continued to evolve, new subgenres emerged, each pushing the boundaries of musical expression. Bebop, which developed in the 1940s, marked a radical departure from the more structured big band style. Pioneered by artists like Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, and Thelonious Monk, bebop was characterized by fast tempos, complex chord progressions, and an emphasis on improvisation. This style of jazz was less focused on dancing and more on intellectual listening, pushing musicians to new technical and creative heights. The 1950s saw the rise of cool jazz, a more subdued and refined style that contrasted with the frenetic energy of bebop. Artists like Miles Davis, whose album, Birth of the Cool, 1957, became a landmark in the genre, helped shape this more relaxed approach to jazz. Davis would continue to innovate throughout his career, constantly reinventing his sound and pushing jazz into new directions, including the fusion of jazz with rock and funk in the late 1960s and 1970s. At the same time, the West Coast jazz scene was developing its own unique sound, often referred to as West Coast cool. Musicians like Chet Baker, Jerry Mulligan, and Dave Brubeck embraced this laid-back, smooth style, which appealed to a wider audience, further solidifying jazz's place in popular culture. Brubeck's Time Out, 1959, became one of the best-selling jazz albums of all time, featuring the groundbreaking track Take 5, which employed unusual time signatures and introduced jazz to a new generation of listeners. The 1960s and 1970s witnessed even more experimentation within jazz as artists began to explore avant-garde and free jazz styles. Musicians like John Coltrane and Ornette Coleman pushed the boundaries of harmony, form, and structure, creating music that was often unpredictable and highly improvisational. Coltrane's A Love Supreme, 1965, is considered one of the most spiritual and groundbreaking albums in jazz history, blending modal jazz with deeply personal themes of faith and transcendence. Free jazz, spearheaded by Ornette Coleman's The Shape of Jazz to Come, 1959, broke away from traditional jazz forms altogether, favoring freedom and spontaneity in its compositions. By the 1970s and 1980s, jazz fusion had taken center stage, blending jazz with rock, funk, and electronic elements. Artists like Herbie Hancock, Weather Report, and Chick Corea experimented with synthesizers, electric guitars, and more driving rhythms, creating a sound that was both contemporary and rooted in jazz's improvisational nature. Hancock's Headhunters, 1973, and Weather Report's Heavy Weather, 1977, became touchstones for the fusion genre, influencing a generation of musicians across multiple genres. In more recent years, jazz has continued to evolve, incorporating elements from hip-hop, electronic music, and world music. Artists like Kamasi Washington, Robert Glasper, and Esperanza Spalding are keeping jazz fresh and relevant by pushing the boundaries of what the genre can be. Kamasi Washington's The Epic, 2015, a sprawling 3-hour album, has been hailed as a modern jazz masterpiece, blending traditional jazz with spiritual and orchestral influences. Jazz's impact extends far beyond music. It has been a powerful force in social and cultural movements as well. During the Civil Rights Movement, jazz musicians like Nina Simone and John Coltrane used their music as a form of protest, speaking out against racial injustice and inequality. Jazz has also played a significant role in shaping modern art, fashion, and literature, influencing figures like Jackson Pollock, Jack Kerouac, and Langston Hughes. Ultimately, jazz's enduring legacy lies in its ability to evolve, adapt, and innovate. From its roots in New Orleans to its global influence today, jazz remains a dynamic and ever-changing genre. Whether through the swinging sounds of Duke Ellington, the bebop brilliance of Charlie Parker, or the fusion explorations of Miles Davis, jazz continues to inspire musicians and listeners alike, proving that its spirit of creativity and improvisation knows no bounds.